So welcome to this series of lectures titled Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Common Sense. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Common Sense. Now, common sense, they say, is not common. So it's not then a big surprise to see that even though Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad-gita is really so common sense and basic, not deep at all, not in any way deep, but as they say, hidden in plain sight. Well, we have thousands and thousands of commentaries on Bhagavad-gita written by authors and those individuals who have given their own versions in terms of their understanding of what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad-gita. But let's look at Bhagavad-gita itself. Bhagavad-gita is considered by in the glorification of Bhagavad-gita. Bhagavad-gita is described as if the entire Vedic literature is a cow, and then Krishna, who is the supreme cowhead boy, milked that cow, milk being the essence of a cow. So Krishna milked that cow and served it to, and fed Arjuna as the calf. So, and then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, "O Lord Krishna is so kind that by aiming his instruction at Arjuna, he delivered the whole world." So this is Bhagavad-gita. So we are going to be looking at different verses in this lecture series on how things that Krishna said in the Bhagavad-gita are actually very basic and simple, not deep at all, because they don't necessarily have to be deep. As they say, hidden in plain sight. Actually, the characteristic feature of truth is always in its simplicity, and such was the simplicity of Bhagavad-gita, that as a matter of fact, Bhagavad-gita, though Sanskrit itself is a very technical and high context language, but actually the Sanskrit that was used in Bhagavad-gita were actually very simple. It's a very simple Sanskrit words, terminology, and structure in its linguistics, but a very elegant but simple, basic in its structure, that is so easy to understand. So not only are the contents of the Bhagavad-gita basically common sense and day-to-day subjects, but the language itself, the metaphors, the similes that Krishna used in Bhagavad-gita was really so very, 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 very simple. But so it's a big one that it's constantly always being twisted this way and that way by different interpreters and commentators. Personally, I subscribe to the version of Bhagavad-gita as it is, written by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, my spiritual master. So here we're looking at Bhagavad-gita as it is, and we're talking about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Common Sense. So first of all, we're going to look at a verse today in the Bhagavad-gita. Interestingly enough, this is a verse where Krishna actually described his message or his knowledge as rahasya, mystical, mysterious, deep. Why? And again, we are saying that actually Krishna was speaking common sense. Of course, common sense that ends up not being common, evidently. So here we're going to start this lecture series by examining this verse found in the Bhagavad-gita. back to excuse me. We're going to, interesting enough, as I said, this is the verse in the Bhagavad-gita where Krishna described his talk, or what he was telling Arjuna, as esoteric, rahasya. So here Krishna told Arjuna, said, first look at this. It says, I have spoken this message to the sun god previously. Imam Vishvakshvasti Yogam Poktavamaham Avyayam Vivashvam Manave Praha Manu Ikshvakave Bravid. So here is about to tell him how this message is very, very ancient and very, very old, but it's always been passed from one disciple to another disciple and to another disciple in an unbroken chain. So here is telling him, Imam Vishvashpati Yogam, this science of yoga, or union with the supreme, or marriage of the soul and the super soul, which gives both of them the ultimate, but especially the soul, the optimal satisfaction. This I have instructed previously to the sun god Vivashvan, Imam Vishvashvati Yogam Bhaktavam Aham Avyayam. I instructed this to the sun god who lived millennia in the past, and then he instructed it to his son, because essentially sons were always disciples of the father, because then we are talking now about an age that was theocratic. You know, the kings were essentially representatives of God in their environment. They were the most advanced spiritually. Matter of fact, that was the prerequisite for being chosen as the king. So the king were not just kings, they also were this the priest, the chief spiritual person who guides everyone spiritually. So the guru. So Imam Vishvashvati Yogam Poktavam Aham Avyayam Vivashvam Manave Prahad, and Vivashvam spoke to Manu. So he is telling Arjuna about individuals who are considered very, very, very advanced spiritually and very, very introspective, who were the emperors of the universe at a time of theocratic dispensation and socio-political arrangement. So Vivashvam Manave Praha Manu Ikshvakave, then Manu spoke to Ishvaku, who also was a king. Vivashvam Manave Praha Manu Ishvakave, then Evam Para Param Praptam Imam Rajarishayo Bidu. Oh, here he says the word. It says, so in this way of the cyclic succession, the saintly kings were passing the messages down to their successors in the cyclic order. But at some point it seems to be scuttled. Now I'm telling you, so I'm making you the recipient in this new dispensation of this most ancient message. Yes, so ancient, but at the same time very simple. And that's what we're about to explore now. So, and this is the verse. The verse following this is what we want to look at and see how basic and common sense. Why are we talking this? Well, it's common sense, and the emphasis is on that, so that we can know that Bhagavad-gita is not just something to read and intellectualize, but actually it is something to apply in our day-to-day life, because Bhagavad-gita is us. Bhagavad-gita addresses us. It's a manuscript that's been given for us to function. It's the roadmap to our day-to-day existential encounters. So Imam Vijvajvate Yogam Puktavam Aham Aveyam Vivajvam Manave Praha Manu Ishvakave Bravid Evam Para Praptam Imam Rajao Shayo Vidu Sakalena Hamahata Yoga Nasta Parantapa. At some point it seems to be scattered. Then now he's telling him, now I am making you the new recipient. Sa Evayam Mayate Dia, he told Arjuna. Now he told him, listen, Saevayam Mayate Dia Yoga Prokta Puratana. This very ancient message. Now I'm speaking it to you. So listen, Arjuna was just told, Imam Vishvashvate Yogam Poktabam Ahama Vyayam. I spoke it to the sun god, who then spoke it to Manu. Arjuna knew all of these people historically. He knew how introspective, how advanced they were spiritually. So you can then imagine that Arjuna is thinking, how am I going to understand this? That's such a stellar club. That's a very, very advanced club. How am I going to understand this? Well, not only understanding it, but we know that it's been going through, Krishna has been going through this exercise with Arjuna up to this point. So this must be going on in Arjuna's mind. And then Krishna then assured him in the next thing that although he told him this is very ancient, Sayevayam Mayatedya Yoga Prokta Puratana. This is Puratana, very, very ancient. This science that I'm about to tell you is very, very, this thing I'm telling you about is very, very ancient. So Arjuna must be thinking. But then Krishna assured him, Bhakto Sime Sakacheti. But you don't have to worry. Because now I'm telling you about the sun god, I'm telling you about Manu, I'm telling you about Ishvaku, and so. But listen, Bhakto Sime Sakacheti. Rahasya Heta Uttama. But for you, you are not just my devotee, but you're my friend. You're my devotee and you're my friend. You're my devotee, and better, deeper than that, more intimate than that, is that you are my friend. Therefore, Rahasya Heta. Therefore, you can understand this seemingly esoteric message of mine. Bhakto Sime Sakachiti Rahasyad Etad Ultima. You can understand because you are my devotee and then you are my friend. Which brings us to then 3 classes of friendship that's been described in the Vedic literatures. Of course, sometimes the word mitra is generally used for friendship. The same time, word bandhu is generally used for friendship. But we know the word surit is rarely used. But this is the word that Krishna is very much interested in. So, as we see in the verse where he says Suhridam Savabhutana, a well-wisher. So Surit is a well-wisher. So here, this is the class that Arjuna belonged to. So he's telling him, you can understand this because you're my devotee and you're my friend. Back to Sime Sakachiti. Though he has told him, Imam Vishvashvate Yogam Poptavam Aham Aveyam Vivajvam Manave Praha Manu Ishvakave Bravi Eva Para Para Praptam Imam Raja Shayo Vidu Sakalene Hamahata Yoga Nasta Parantapa. So I've discussed this with many people, and now I'm letting you know, because you are my friend, and you are not just my devotee, you are also my friend. So this is Krishna's statement to Arjuna. So this is the point. So look at how common sense that is. Just look at how common sense that is. Because let's look at our own lives. How easy it is for people to not understand us, because we all have our different peculiarities as individuals. We all have our fair share of our personal eccentricities, peculiarity, uniqueness, name it, idiosyncratic tendencies, name it. So the transfer of information from one person to another, something that you think about subjectively or you conceive subjectively, as clear as it is in your mental space, when you now have to transfer that your subjective conception and understanding to someone else, which is what we do in communication, we all know that there is always a gap in that transition, because the other person who you're speaking to and speaking with also is understanding you now, understanding what you're saying objectively and interpreting that subjectively, and that is having to also go through the filter of their own peculiarities and their own idiosyncratic tendencies and their own uniqueness and their own history and sociological pedigree. And so there's always a gap, because what else is the cause of conflict in human society except communication gap? But a friend understands you. Your friend really can misunderstand you. Your friend knows your mental bearings. It's a word he shares with you affectionately. It's a world that he lives in. He is used to you. He has a symbiotic relationship with you. There is a synergy. There is an enwrapment of your consciousness with your friends. And friendship is the heartbeat. Oh, did I just say heartbeat? It's not just only the heartbeat, it's also the spinal cord of every relationship. Every relationship. Like every relationship. Matter of fact, every form of loving relationship. Platonic, agape, or amorous. And we can see how common sense that is, because look at a family. You are born in a particular family, so by default everyone in that family is connected to you, your siblings, your mother, your father, your parents. And so by default, you hold each other certain responsibilities and obligations. But at the same time, we have seen how there are siblings who don't even see each other eye to eye. They barely can even stay in the same place for 1 minute. They barely could even tolerate each other. And we have even seen cases in worst case scenario where there is homicide. But yet, their family, siblings. And we have seen even couples who can stand, they may not have started like that, but who at some point can even stand the guts of each other. And in every of those cases, one thing you will always find out is the sense of friendship either was never there or was lost. So a friend knows your mind. He knows he takes cues. He hears you from your heart, because that is where his connection with you is. We've also seen that in a family, you have your siblings. And then you see John is Anita's friend. And Fred is Monica's friend. But they're all siblings. So by default, they are siblings, but by choice, which is actually the most important, because relationship is a matter of choice. In fact, friendship ultimately is the graduation of every relationship, whether it be agape, even agape, which is a relationship with God. The ultimate is to grow in relationship with God to that point that you experience friendship. Awe and reverence is dissolved, because awe and reverence stifle loving sentiments. Marital relationships, the same, amorous. It starts as friendship, it has to. Friendship is the mean and the end of amorous relationship. It's like it starts as a new moon appearing, and then it should grow as it waxes to the point of becoming the full moon. And at the full moon of amorous relationship, which is the same with agape relationship with God, is that the worshipper and the object of worship become one entity. This is the power of friendship. And the same with amorous relationship. As I say, it starts like a new moon. It has to start from friendship. But it also the pinnacle of it is friendship. which just get deeper and deeper and deeper, like a full moon growing bigger and bigger until it reaches its fullness. And at the fullness of this moon of friendship in amorous relationship is where the consciousness of the couple becomes one. Two people or one consciousness. They merged in consciousness. At this point, words as a form of communication is so relegated to the background because they speak from the language, they speak from the heart. And so she perfectly understands him. He perfectly understands her. Because they're one entity. The same with agape love. They'll be separated. This is not suggesting merging. No. Identity is still maintained. Distinction is still maintained, but consciousness is one. So, platonic, even friendship is. So, therefore, Krishna is telling Arjuna, you can understand this message. Now, Krishna says here, Rahasya. But he says Rahasya, but he's telling Arjuna, you can understand. Meaning what? Those who are not my friends cannot understand this. In fact, the people I've just listed for you, Imam Vishvashvati Yogam Puktava Mahama Vyam Vivajvan Manave Prahamanu Ishvakave Bravidevam Para Praptam Imam Rajash Yovidu. These people that I've listed for you, or these saintly kings, they were just devotees. But you, even better than them, you are my friend. This is the qualification for understanding Bhagavad-gita. But is that really esoteric? No, because that is a qualification for understanding anyone. To understand someone, the deeper your level of friendship is with them, the better you understand them. Mano vistam, because you will understand. Mana means my be, to be totally absorbed or to be fully conscious. You will be fully conscious of their mental drift. You will understand them. Even if he says no externally, and other people says, well, he just said no, you hear distinctly, yes, because you know him, because you are his friend. It's common sense. So what Krishna says, Rahasya, no, meaning what? It is Rahasya. It's so esoteric and so deep and so unfathomable. And people will be grappling and struggling to understand it. But for you, you're my friend. You're not just my devotee, you're my friend. Which brings us to another point, that yes, in Krishna consciousness, there are devotees, but there is a need to go further and further than being just a devotee, but to actually be Krishna's friend, Saka. This is what is called rasa. That one should practice one's devotional service in such a way with the mode that ultimately lead to this. But it's common sense. Who can understand you? Your friend. Therefore, the example I gave earlier on, even in a family, you have 4 siblings. And only Fred understands James. Because only James will Fred tell his secrets to. At a time T, they're looking for Fred. James knows where to find him. And other members of the family don't. But the family James is his friend. So this is what Krishna is saying to Arjuna. You can understand. It's a very ancient message. Sayevaya Mayate Dia Yoga Prokta Puratanam. But it is a very, very ancient message that Imam Vishvashvati Yogam have spoken to the Sangha. He was a supremely intelligent person. Arjuna didn't have the kind of education that the sun god had, or pedigree that the sun god had. But Arjuna is Krishna's friend. So he understood. So Krishna said, oh, you will understand. So this is common sense. Krishna spoke. One common sense after another common sense, another common sense. But what is the essence of this talk? That we look at it like this and not complicate things. Simplicity is Krishna consciousness. And just take this message in its simple sense. Understanding it by establishing a relationship of friendship with Krishna. And then the more we are becoming Krishna's friends, the more we will understand even internally. Because Krishna is the original Guru. In fact, the only Guru. And it's in our hearts. Common sense. Krishna